You want to support Roland Martin Unfiltered? Be sure to join our Bring the Funk fan club. Every dollar that you give to us supports our daily digital show. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real as Roland Martin Unfiltered. By going to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com, you can make this possible. Let's go to our second story. I saw this here, and I got to do this before I go to because I am going to the marijuanastop.org. I got cause look, hey, they're a damn sponsor, y'all. Right, damn that. All right, y'all. So pull this story up here. Charlottesville City Council votes to cease celebrating Thomas Jefferson's birthday, April 13th, as an official holiday. This is the Wall Street Journal article right here. The city will observe a day recognizing the emancipation of enslaved African Americans. And I was sitting here reading this story, and conservatives, I saw Mark Davis, radio talk show host out of Dallas. He's like, when is this going to end? I'm like, when y'all start recognizing black folks fully. And then somebody was like, oh, Thomas Jefferson, he tried to write the abolition of slavery into the Constitution. It got taken out. Well, his ass didn't have to own slaves. See, here's my whole deal with people who say, oh, at the time, everybody did. No, everybody didn't.
No,
everybody didn't. See, if you were truly an abolitionist, you didn't have to own them. So what do y'all make of this? And so, again, so this is the deal. City Council voted Monday to scrap the decades-old April 13th holiday, honoring the founding father and president who owned slaves. Charlottesville will now mark Liberation and Freedom Day on March 3rd, the day U.S. Armed Forces arrived in the city in 1865. I think it's a great idea.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with them changing it to the day that they have. As far as just this, the notion of Thomas Jefferson, people like to romanticize the relationship that he actually had with the slave that he raped, Sally Hemmings, but...
Hemmings.
Yep. Yeah, but
she was property.
Yeah, he's from Mississippi.
Yeah, so but for me, and when I hear people have these conversations, even the politicians here and on the Hill, when you start saying, well, let's remove the Thomas Jefferson Memorial, when you start saying, let's remove them from the U.S. Capitol, when you start saying, let's remove the Confederate Memorial at Arlington Cemetery, then I'll start believing that you're actually serious about this discussion, but we know that's not going to happen.
Well, but here's the deal, though. I was in Statuary Hall. I was there for the Congressional Black Caucus. They had an event there dealing with fatherhood, and I'm going through Statuary Hall, and I didn't know where I was going, and so I was like, yo, can y'all tell me where I'm going? And then they're like, oh yeah, so when you walk past this point here, make a left by this. Pull it up, please. All right. You don't see it? Hold on. Let's see here. I'm trying to pull it up. Now hold up. Let's see here. Okay. All right. Can't pull it up. Basically, it's a damn statue, Robert E. Lee. Every state in the Union gets to have two statues in Statuary Hall. Virginia continues to have the Robert E. Lee statue, a man who was a traitor to his country. If you actually fought for the Confederacy, you were a damn traitor and a domestic terrorist. And that's what he was. I'm going to call it like I see it. I don't care what anybody thinks. And I'm sorry. If you black from Virginia, that should not be... when you go to the state capitol, when these kids go on field trips, that should not be one of the two damn statues from your state honoring a Confederate general. Sorry.
And they're still there.
Yeah, they're still there.
Yeah.
So, and there are people who call it for right. But I think, Kelly, look, I like what Charlottesville City Council did. And for the people who don't like it, well, guess what? The reality is this nation was founded on the premise of bigotry and discrimination.
Absolutely.
It was not all men are created equal. This nation, despite what all these folks want to lie about, this nation was founded based upon the principle of white male landowners running America. Today is the 55th anniversary of the Civil Rights Act of 1964. 3 days ago was the anniversary of the Morrill Act that created land grant universities in this country. Okay, and Lincoln signed into law, but it wasn't for another 25 years where they created a second Morrill Act for black folks. That's how we got our black land grant universities. We weren't in the original one.
Right.
We had to get the second one. So the point is, for all the people who don't like it, who hold up the founding fathers, we can call out and we should correct the story of who they were. And yes, if it means honoring slaves and African Americans over a slave owner, ain't got no problem with it.
And there shouldn't be a problem with it, but to take it a step further, anybody who disagrees with that, specifically actually wanting to keep Confederate statues and figures in the narrative, I would consider you a traitor. And if it weren't for the First Amendment of protection of free speech, I would argue that these people could be jailed because you are talking against our union. You are talking about against preserving basically the enemies of the state. So, but for the First Amendment, they're safe. But for, you know, the distance between the historical moment and now, they're safe. But for you to want to protect something that has or shouldn't have anything to do with the American history, the fabric of American history, not just a moment of it, you know, I mean, that's dicey. You shouldn't even want to think along those lines.
Well, and what kills me with all of these people who are running around and they don't like you. Oh, we don't believe these Confederate statues should come down. Okay. By all means, erect Hitler statues across America. And let's see what the reaction is going to be. In fact, let's erect statues of Black Panthers. Oh, we know that'll scare the hell out of y'all. The bottom line is this here. There are people today who want to defend white supremacy. And for the Charlottesville, and here's also what I think is interesting. Because Malik, Republicans always talk about big government, local control. Big government, local control. Alabama Republicans passed a law that local city councils could not pass ordinance removing statues. Happened in Tennessee as well. So I always get amazed by the people who love local control
until it doesn't benefit their
argument. Until they don't like it.
Right. Yeah, I mean, and unfortunately, that is where we are. I think it is worth acknowledging that some of these, you know, slave owners and people who fought, that the history is more complex for some people, not for everyone, but for some people, because some of these people ended up becoming presidents of the United States.
And complex.
You know, well,
I'm trying to. What do you mean?
Complex in the we still have, for instance, the Washington Monument. You know, I'm talking about the Jefferson Memorial that we have. We still have some of them. You know, these remnants, vestiges of this period is still there.
Right.
But they have more complicated histories than just being a part. You know, fighting actually in that war where they fought against.
Yeah, but here's the deal. Well, first of all, Washington wasn't alive in the Civil War. All of them.
Yeah.
But we have to acknowledge, though, that had Washington had the guts, and had Jefferson had the guts, and had any of them had the guts to say, no, we are not going to create a nation that is going to enslave and degrade and deny opportunities for people of African descent. That would not be how we do it. Had they actually bothered to read their own words,
we wouldn't have had to wait
and apply it. We would. First of all, we would not have had a civil war, and we would not be dealing with the reality of race today had they been truly honorable men. And so I have no problem. See, if all these white folks who want us to be quiet, well then, but these are the same people who celebrated when the Smithsonian National Museum of African American History and Culture, when they added an addendum to the Bill Cosby display. See, y'all follow me here. I'm going somewhere. So all these people who don't want us calling out the Confederate statues, but they had a problem to amend the Bill Cosby display, where they talked about the Cosby Show, how dominant it was and how important it was. They amended the display to add the sexual assault charges and him being found guilty. So when you go through the Smithsonian and you see this on Bill Cosby, you're going to see that as well. So please explain to me, if y'all happy with that, why are you not happy if those of us say, add something to the Jefferson Memorial, add something to the Washington Monument, add something to all these other displays?
Historic perspective.
This is amazing how they get real quiet on that stuff.
I think that, you know, with what you just said, I think that would actually make it even more of a beautiful memorial to see the entire story, to see like that the presidents and the people that we honor weren't a monolith, that they didn't just do good things, that they were actually full human beings. And even though they did these mistakes, they also did something great, which is X, Y, or Z, whoever the person is. But also to show that these were extremely flawed men.
Because,
and how
yes.
do we rectify that mistake of them being, like the ramifications of them being, you know, flawed men? How do we rectify that into the future? Because just having all the good things that they've done, that doesn't help anybody.
Jason, if you are going to praise them for being founding fathers and creating this, they got to own what else they created, and that is American racism.
Absolutely. There's no question about it. And as far as Washington, I have so much history going through my mind right now. Of course, Washington chased a runaway enslaved woman by the name of Ona Judge until the day he died. He knew that there was no slavery in Philadelphia. There was a rule in the state of Pennsylvania that you had to take that after after 6 months, your enslaved people were free. No, 90 days, I believe. After 90 days, your enslaved people were free. He would bring his enslaved people with him to Philadelphia, because that was the capital. And what he would do was take them outside of the state, whether it was to New Jersey or back to Virginia, just to reset the clock. Literally, take you on a road trip and then bring you right back so that you weren't free, just to get around that kind of technicality. And so for me, and again, of course, Sally Hemings, you mentioned Sally Hemings, 14 years old at the time. You know, it was basically a younger version of his wife. You know, and we
enslaved.
Enslaved, and that's another thing. You know, I hate to be like the word guy, but I would say we should not use the word slave owner. We should use the word slave holder. A captive is held. A hostage is held.
Professor.
You know what I mean? Those people. You know, you own property. You own, you own a table.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You own a horse. But
black people weren't people.
No, they were property.
Right, absolutely. No. But we want to acknowledge them as captives, as hostages, and as people. So we shouldn't. And I would say, I don't like to even use the word slave. I use the word enslaved. Because enslaved shows that it's a condition.
Right.
Slave makes it into an identity.
And some of those kids, I don't think they were, some of those kids weren't freed until after Thomas Jefferson actually died.
And that's why, and then I'll use
Washington
Harvey
the same way.
Saying now, and that's why now the rest of the story, which they don't want y'all to know. All right, folks, back to our Roland Mark Unfiltered video in just one moment. All right, y'all. They're back. MarijuanaStock.org is another great investment opportunity. If you were lucky enough to invest in their last crowdfunding campaign, they raised a bunch of money in just a few months investing in legal marijuana farms. Those initial investors now own shares of a publicly traded company. And I'm sure you're like, damn it, why didn't I get involved? Now they have a new investment opportunity that is as good, if not even better, than the last one. I'm talking about industrial hemp CBD. For those who don't know, the hemp plant is the cousin to marijuana with a much higher concentration of CBD, which means hemp CBD gives you all the medical benefits of marijuana without getting you high. Some of y'all like, dang, but that's the fact. Until recently, hemp farming was practically illegal in the United States and heavily regulated by the DEA. However, the 2018 Farm Bill changed all of that, making it legal to grow hemp CBD in the U.S., thus creating one of the largest commodities worldwide. They need land to grow all of its plants, and this makes for an incredible investment opportunity, and that's where our good friends at 420 Real Estate come in. Their business model is simple. They buy land that supports hemp CBD grow operations and lease it to licensed, high-paying tenants. That's right, they are hemp CBD landlords, and you can get in on the action. by investing in this crowdfunding campaign for as little as $200 up to $10,000. If you want to invest, go to marijuanastock.org. That's marijuanastock.org. Get in the game and do it now. Now back to your Roland Martin Unfiltered video.